Welcome to the Darkstream. Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com. And I'm very happy to be able to announce that equality has arrived at last. I know that you're all as excited as I am. Welcome to the VFM. Welcome to the Dread Ilk. And to the 20,000 reprehensibles that is the new milestone that the Darkstream has reached. Very pleased about that. Welcome as well to the Bears. Hey, Nationalist Bear. Good to see you all. You know, this is a development that was always bound to happen. This was something that the feminists and the equalitarians promised was not ever going to happen. You know, it was all just about giving women opportunities. You know, what they weren't spelling out is that it's all about giving women opportunities to die in combat for wars that are not in the American national interest. I personally find the whole thing to be absolutely ridiculous, absolutely appalling. And the thing that is the most irksome about it is that none of the people in the military who know better, men who have actually been in war, who have actually commanded men in war, who know the realities of war, none of them are going to speak out against this. How do I know this? Because one of the things that I was most disappointed in, some of you may or may not be aware that my uncle, Chuck Krulak, not my blood uncle, but I didn't know that he wasn't actually my uncle till I was 15. He was the commandant of the Marine Corps. Great man. Very, 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 very intelligent man. A man of great personal integrity. Multiple Purple Hearts. Much loved by all of his troops. And yet, even he couldn't bring himself to speak publicly against female Marines. It was the only time I ever remember talking to him and having him give me an answer that I knew he didn't believe. We were talking once, and I said something about the lunacy of women in combat. I think we were actually at Quantico at the time. He was commanding at Quantico, and I said, don't you think it's ridiculous and foolish that they are forcing you to have women in the Marine Corps? And it was the first and only time I ever saw him suddenly have a very guarded look in his eyes, and he said, our female Marines are, the finest Marines, we have, or so, something to that effect. I mean, it for somebody who is always a very straight speaker, it was glaringly apparent that he was just spitting out the pre-approved boilerplate. And I don't fault him for saying this, because what I realized later, at the time I was very disappointed. I was actually more confused than anything. Like, what does he know that I don't? What am I missing? And what I realized is that if you are a general, then you have to talk like that. You have to say that. You cannot take a position against the dogma, that is not acceptable. If you will never get above the rank of colonel if you speak the truth about it. Oh yeah, that person is that's I think their third name that they've tried to use. You know, we're getting to the point now where we've not only got trolls, but we've got people who are return trolls, and so this is why, for those people who get upset about the idea of memberships and stuff eventually, this is why once the stream gets more popular, you have to go to that, because otherwise you spend all your time trying to police the comments while you are also talking, which is a little bit distracting. Yeah, and the truth is that women in the military are a complete and utter disaster. I know of I don't know my Navy ranks as well as I should, but the non-commissioned officer path. I know a Navy officer who was fairly far along that path, and he got cashiered because a female naval, not an ensign, whatever. Anyhow, a woman who was under his command was angry at him for having disciplined her boyfriend, who was also under his command, and she manufactured a completely false accusation of him harassing her. They knew it was false. Master Chief, right? Exactly, a Master Chief. They knew that it was false, but they also knew that it would not be acceptable to hold her responsible for her false accusation or to ignore it. And so he ended up having to admit to something that he hadn't done in order to retire with all his benefits. So because one woman who was fraternizing against the rules, who was breaking the rules and should have been kicked out herself because she was angry about her boyfriend getting his wrist slapped, the Navy lost a very senior non-commissioned officer, smart guy, good guy, with a lot of experience, for nothing. And so, it's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. And it's also interesting that when they talk about women in combat, they like to bring up the Israeli Defense Forces. And yet the first time, and I believe one of the only times, that the women of the IDF went into combat, I think it was called the Caracal Battalion or something like that. They had a special battalion of highly trained female troops, and they went into they got into a skirmish, and it wasn't like a particularly heavy combat or anything, but they found the commander. She basically ran away and hid in the bushes. It was a complete train wreck, to such an extent that they completely changed their minds about trying to encourage more women to go into combat positions. It's just absolutely crazy. Joseph Sokolowski is familiar with Israeli military history. There's a famous quote about I believe it was an Israeli general, might have even been Moshe Dayan, who said that the reason that the secret to the IDF success was fighting Arabs. So, but anyhow, it's Splitter Trace. Well, it's not. Splitter Trace says IDF sucks. All they do is attack unarmed civilians. Well, that's actually part of the problem. I mean, you actually have the causal order backwards. If you read Martin van Creveld, the great Israeli military historian, he writes about this in his book, Equality, the Impossible Quest. I highly recommend it. And what he talks about is the way that if you use your troops against civilians, they lose their ability to function effectively as troops. That's why it doesn't work well when you use troops as police. It works not much better than when you try to use police as soldiers. They're different functions. Let's see here. Oh, thank you, Nick. Nick says, congratulations on 20,000 subs. I appreciate it, all of you. It's nice to see that more people are interested in the kind of stuff that we're talking about. And it's also great that to see the response to the extended audio book samples that we've been posting recently. Darkstream, militia formation and culture dissemination, a much better long-term strategy than a huge professional military. Yes, because a huge professional military has to be used in order to keep it in order. All the training in the world is not going to keep a military in fighting shape. And so the mere act of putting together a huge professional military essentially creates the need to use it. Where is this question here? Bima says, Vox, I am super depressed for the last 2 days. Does that ever happen to you? No, I literally never get depressed. I've never been depressed. I've never been terribly full of angst. You know, I don't, you know, if it has to do with chemical imbalance stuff, then, you know, there's nothing I can say that is going to help you. If it's just nihilism and the pointlessness of life, then find a purpose, you know, go out and build something, go out and do some hard physical labor. Typically, what I've noticed about people that are subject to depression is that they often are not using their bodies at all. I suspect that one of the reasons that I am not subject to depression in any way, shape, or form is partly because I work out all the time. You know, the more that you know, people talk about, oh, I can't sleep and stuff. It's like, well, you know, try doing a high intensity course and then, you know, lifting weights. You know, you're going to fall asleep. I remember I knew I was getting a bit older the first time that I couldn't play an entire soccer game and then go to the gym and lift weights. Space Bunny laughed one time because I'd played a full game and it went pretty well. I think I scored 2 goals or something. And then I went back to the house and said, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the gym in a bit. I just need to, you know, take a break here for a few minutes. She said she came back. She walked out of the room and she came back and I was lying on the carpet face down, sound asleep. When I woke up, she's like, yeah, you're not going to the gym. So, yeah, I'm not saying that will necessarily work, but I think that it is something that you should try before you start turning to chemicals and drugs and that sort of stuff. Gospel Bearer says, serious question, Vox, completely random though. Would you consider yourself a prophet? Absolutely not. No way. Definitely not. Duralex Sedlex says, the only people who want to see women in combat are people who want to see women butchered and used. I don't even think that most of the people who've been pushing for women in the military want to see women in combat. They want to play around with equality, but they don't want real equality. They don't understand. There's a lot of people who don't understand that consequences are real. They're just talking to be talking. They're talking to make noise. It's like when you're having a debate or a discussion with someone and they say, you're wrong because of X. And then you disprove X conclusively to their satisfaction. But then instead of saying, oh, I guess you're right, they immediately retreat to, you're wrong because of Y. And after a few iterations of this process, you begin to understand that they don't actually mean what they say. The words are just symbols, meaningless symbols. All they really care about is trying to tell you that you're wrong because they want you to be wrong. They want you to feel bad. And I think that that is the situation for a lot of feminists. That's why they probably were not consciously lying when they said, oh, we just want to allow women in the military. They'll never be in combat. They'll never be drafted. And a lot of people, I remember, because I remember those debates, a lot of people said, look, this is going to happen. You can't claim that women can be in the military, but not in combat. You can't claim that women can be in combat and then not draft them. So, what it all boils down to, of course, is it all comes down to rhetoric versus dialectic. What does Aristotle say about rhetoric and dialectic? There are some people whom no amount of information can change their minds. So it doesn't matter how strong the case it is. That doesn't mean that they are lying in a dialectical sense. They're literally not transmitting actual information. They're not transmitting relevant information. Talon asks, Vox, what kind of soldier would you be? Well, I was going to, when I went to enlist with my friend, we were enlisting in the Marines because that's my family tradition. And I was just interested in becoming a regular infantry officer. That's what my grandfather was. That's what my uncle was. My friend actually wanted to become a Harrier pilot. So, band number 2 incoming. Yep, already. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we're going to get more trolls, especially because of the Jordan Peterson extended audio book, the sample of the Jordanetics book. Jordan Peterson fans are, omegas and gammas, and they tend to be nasty little people. That's why Jordan Peterson appeals to them. If you've actually read his book, you will understand that he is intentionally preying upon the lowest ranking males in the social hierarchy, and he's using them. He's taking advantage of them, but he makes them feel better. And so that's why they're so angry and defensive of Jordan Peterson, because when you're revealing him to be a charlatan, you're taking away something from them that makes them feel good. You're basically taking the pot away from a stoner. TB88 says, left Army just before ban lifted on women in combat. Women now put into admin spots in infantry companies so they won't be in squads. Yeah, exactly. Now low-rank women are in close contact with the highest-ranking men in company. Big problem. Of course. Oh, and we got the same troll back again. This is literally the fourth time that they've tried to get this. It's funny. Because I don't give a damn about New York City, they're trying to imply that I thought 911 was okay because Israel did it. Okay, there's multiple falsehoods in that claim, which is of course why they're trying to ask those questions. This is why I have such contempt for trolls. Why would you ever go on somebody's channel and bother them? Back in, I don't know, 2008, maybe 2009, John Scalzi made it clear that he would prefer that I didn't comment on his blog anymore at whatever. And at the time, whatever was considered to be the most popular blog in science fiction. I was a science fiction author, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't like I commented there all the time. I probably hadn't commented there even a total of 20 comments. But when he said that, I never commented there again. I barely read there again. I simply do not understand what twisted little minds feel the need to try to keep coming back to a place that they are clearly not wanted. It's very strange. Daniel Paulo says, women join the army for 3 reasons: to find a man, to lose a man, or to become a man. Yeah, I think most of them are in the find a man category. Muffhead says, my grandfather was a Navy corpsman with the Marine Raiders in the Pacific. It haunted him to the end of his days. Sending women? No way. Insanity. Well, look, I don't think that women are ever actually going to get into serious combat, because I don't think that they're going to have any ability. Not only they're going to not have any ability to actually do so, but once the threat becomes real, then you're going to see them all get pregnant so fast and taken out of the combat zones so fast, it'll make your head spin. Right now, most people, including people in the U.S. military, think the U.S. military is essentially invulnerable. But that's not true. And the first time that the Chinese or the Russians sink an aircraft carrier, that's when or even force a carrier group to retreat for fear of being sunk, that's when the illusion of U.S. military superiority is going to disappear. Eincrew says, come on, Vox, trolling your enemies is a time-honored internet tradition. Yes, in some contexts, but when you're actually trying to disrupt, there's 948 people watching. When you're trying to interrupt, it's like being a streaker at a sporting event. It's just completely obnoxious. So, is it worth the risk of joining an armed forces branch in this eternal current year? I'm tempted to enlist. I would not. I would not do it because I think that the U.S. military is in for a world of hurt. All empires eventually push things too far. The Athenian Empire thought it was on top of the world, after it, had performed well in the war against Sparta, and they really thought that they were untouchable. So they went and invaded Syracuse. The Syracuse expedition went horrifically wrong, and it wasn't that much longer before Sparta was at their gates. The Roman Empire contracted fairly rapidly once it was no longer able to, once it stopped expanding. And so the U.S. is already at the point where it is beginning to retract. And so I think that this would be a bad time to do that. Dave said, I knew a Navy officer, and he said that they kept catching women sleeping with guys, but had to keep it quiet due to pressure from above. That's right. That's another part of the problem, is that the women are not expected to follow the rules. And so it completely destroys military discipline. PC Dude 95 has it right. If you're nice to trolls, you're mean to everyone else. Keep in mind, I've been moderating my blog since 2003. So I know how to control this stuff. I know how to handle it. At one point, I had been forced to lock the blog down to so that, because we used to allow for free and open commenting, free, open, and anonymous commenting. Worked fine for over a decade. But finally, the blog got to the point where we were, seeing 100,000 views a day, and people just got out of control. The trolls got out of control, and so we had to limit it to people who had registered Google accounts and were logged into them, because it's a blogger blog. That was the only way to keep it under control. And some people were pretty irritated by that, and I pointed out that they had no idea how much work went into moderating this stuff beyond this simple lockdown procedure. And so I turned off all moderation, told the moderators to stop deleting comments from trolls and stuff. And in less than 12 hours, the very people who had, actually I think it was even faster than that, it was like within an hour or two, the people who had been complaining that we were being too harsh were begging us to restore the harsh moderation, because it became totally unusable as soon as the trolls knew they had free reign. And so, that's why I think it's really strange when people complain about, Owen going to a membership thing. I've always made it very clear that the minute that we go to 30,000, we'll go to a membership thing, not because I want to eliminate people's ability to chat, but because I want to be able to address topics like the state of Israel. I want to be able to address topics like Christianity and atheism without the discourse being constantly disrupted by these obnoxious little cretins. Let's see here. Why women join military but not roughneck? I don't know what that means. Cordell Mitchell says, Vox, what are some good studies or pieces of info that can make a good argument against women in the military, and even an argument in a rhetorical sense? Also, the A Throne of Bones audiobook was so good, I had to pick up The Last Witch King. Well, I'm delighted to hear that. Jeremy Daw does a phenomenal job, and he's definitely going to be doing the rest of the Selenoth stuff as well. In terms of argument against women in the military, there's already there's a bunch of studies that are out there. Just do a Google search on it, and you'll find all kinds of information relating to the inability of women to perform to the necessary standards that have existed for decades. They had to relax the standards, and that's repeatedly, in order to allow a woman to pass the Green Beret course, in order to allow a woman to pass the Marine officer course. The standards are incredibly dumbed down. It's much, much easier to pass those things because they want to allow women to pass them. Yeah, it was kind of funny. There was a woman that I knew at the gym back in Minnesota, and she was really cute. I mean, she literally looked like a walking doll. She was like 4'10" max, maybe even shorter. But she was really, really cute, really attractive. And it was funny because one day she showed up and she was wearing her reserve outfit, the camo and all. And I said, "You're in the Army Reserve?" And she laughed and said, "Yeah." And I said, "What do you do?" She said, "Oh, I'm a mechanic." I said, a mechanic? She said, "A truck mechanic." I said, "I've lifted weights with you. I don't think you could even carry a toolbox." And she laughed and said, "Oh, I can't." She said, "I just asked one of the guys to do it." And I remember thinking, wow, that's not a good sign for the U.S. military. I mean, there is no way that any functional military should have this woman involved in it as anything but a nurse at most. I mean, or maybe assembling very delicate things with her little tiny hands. But, there is absolutely no way that any military with women in it is going to win any wars. Unbearable Suffering says 50-year-old women are a greater threat than their counterparts. Change my mind. Threat to what? I'm 50, and the average 50-year-old woman that I know is not even capable of doing 20 minutes on a treadmill. So obviously Space Bunny is in incredible physical condition. You should have seen. We were at a back when we were first married. We were at the state fair, the Minnesota State Fair, and we did a pull-up. There's a Marine Corps pull-up challenge, and the men had to do like 15 or 20 pull-ups. I can't remember. And the women had to do like a fixed arm hang for 30 seconds or something like that. And it was kind of funny because, we just looked at it and laughed. And then I actually did the entire set of required pull-ups, but instead of doing them like this, which is the way they were doing them, I did them behind the head, which of course is much harder. And she, instead of doing first she did the flexed arm hang, and then she actually did a couple real behind the head pull-ups. And so, which of course, blew the recruiter's mind. But what was funny and what was interesting is that the Marine Corps kept calling her for like a year, trying to get her to enlist, because they have so much difficulty finding any women who are capable of passing even their basic qualification tests. And that was, what, 25 years ago? Something like that. I mean, Space Bunny can still do behind the head pull-ups. I'm betting that there's not 2% of women out there that can do that, even if they're only 20 years old. And so, there is no way that even if these women had the mentality and the discipline, and we know they don't, there's no way that they have the physical fitness to even consider getting into combat. Boingo Bear asks, why are women so resistant to the natural order of things in this day and age? Propaganda and mind control, or is there something more? It's mostly propaganda, and it's mostly pride. They don't want to accept their role in society. They have rejected Western civilization. They have rejected Christianity. They've adopted this ridiculous feminist philosophy, which is less sustainable than communism. And they're going to end up losing their ability to live in a society with flush toilets because of it. It's a total disaster. And you should never, and this is something I'm going to advise all of you, men and women, never ever give even lip service to feminism. Feminism is a more evil philosophy than National Socialism. Feminism is a less viable basis for a society than full-blown communism. It's a total evil and satanic disaster. And you need to stop encouraging girls to get a degree so you can get a good job and all that sort of thing. It doesn't work that way. It's never worked that way. We're already seeing what Martin Van Creveld predicted, that the college degree is losing its value, it's losing its status, because college degrees are increasingly becoming seen as something that girls have and girls do. So men don't value it because they know that women don't actually do the work. They don't. They get the credential, but they water down the credential because they don't think it's fair that people fail. I mean, this is nothing new. This is somebody says, my girlfriend is feminist, what do I do? Tell her that she can't be. Tell her that if she wants to be a feminist, that's fine, but then you don't want anything to do with her. Women like to follow strong men. Women are attracted to men who have sufficient self-confidence that they're not going to knuckle under to her beliefs. If you know married people, you'll notice that over time, the wife usually tends to adopt a lighter version of the politics of her husband. If you look at the voting patterns in the United States, single women vote Democrat, married women vote Republican. Now that's partly because they see their interests change, but it's also partly because they are around their husband and influenced by their husband's thinking. That's normal. That's the normal pattern for things. Dave points out, my woman loves when I don't back down. That's right. See, Annabelle Rankin is this is the problem with, okay, but you weren't a young girl when we could not even go into a pub alone. Oh, congratulations. You can go into a pub. But now you've got typhus and the toilets don't work. What kind of trade-off is that? Do you not see, this is why it was a mistake to allow women to vote in the first place. I am glad I have my degree and my subsequent career and I work hard. I'm not. They're wastes. Society doesn't need you to have a degree. Your degree is useless. Your job is useless. What do you think you're accomplishing? It is a tragedy. Do you not understand that it is a tragedy for a highly intelligent woman to get a degree and have a career? Because what you're guaranteeing is that the next generation is going to be less intelligent than you are. Because if the most intelligent women don't have any kids and higher level education is the best predictor of female childishness that there is, in Germany, 2/3 of the women who have master's degree or better never have children. Do you have any idea how much that dumbs down the next generation of Germans? We're already seeing that the United States has lost an average of 10 IQ points on average. Now, part of that is immigration, but part of it is because of women like Annabelle, who are so glad they have their degree and their career and no children. You're not doing the most important thing that you have to do. You're not doing the one thing that society actually needs you to do. Peter Bin says, Dearest Dark Lord, I'd pay twice the price if you narrated your own nonfiction voice. Your voice timing and emphasis is way better than the prose for intellectual expression. Please. I'm not good at it. I tried doing SJWs Always Lie, and I screwed up so many times that it was just, I just at that point threw up my hands, called the audio editor, said, have Bob do it. And, you know, I kind of like the idea of doing it, but it doesn't matter. Oh, good. Our troll is back. It doesn't matter that I can do it. The fact of the matter is that I'm just not going to get around to doing it. And so, you know, it's just too bad. Annabelle Rankin says, we are all different. Not so glad. Fact of life. Can't make marriage happen. I understand. And I'm not saying that it's all your fault. It may not even be your fault at all. You know, the deck is stacked against you. But when you are out there saying things like, I'm so glad I have a job, think about the message that you're sending to those young women who should be told, you know what you should do? Focus on finding a good man and getting married and having children. Because that's what society needs from you. You know, we don't need more PowerPoint pushers. We don't need more paperwork filers. You know, you're not going to cure cancer. Nobody is. You know, they try to bring up these examples of, well, what if we're, you know, here's the thing. We were told before women achieved liberation and equality, we were told that we were losing out on all this massive talent, that there was going to be this intellectual explosion once women were free to be educated. Well, where the hell is it? Because I don't see it. In fact, all we've seen is the dysgenic, even dis-civilizational modification of the demographics, because the women who were smart enough to have intelligent children aren't having children at all. Too many of them. And just to make it worse, do you know what is actually happening? If you look at the demographic change of the labor market from 1950, guess who moved out of the labor force in almost equal numbers to the number of young women between the ages of 20 and 30 moving into the labor force? Essentially, what we've done as a society is we have employed the women who would have become young wives and mothers, and they are working so that men over the age of 60 can collect Social Security and play golf. Do you really think that that's a smart trade-off? Is that really what you wanted to accomplish? Instead of having a family, instead of having children, instead of being a wife and mother, you're working at an office, doing something pointless, so that old men can play golf. Well done. YT785 says, as a woman, it's hard not to fall into the career thing. You get looked down on by other women just for having a family. Well, yeah, but that's your problem. You're going to wreck your life because other women might look down on you? Who the hell cares? You know who looks down on childless career women? Happily married women with lots of kids. They don't envy those women. They either feel contempt for them or they feel sorry for them and sad for them. That's the reality. Not Gay Baird says, life's greatest goal is to outbreed the goat lovers. I don't know if I would say greatest goal, but I would say that it is at least a societal imperative. Tim McCarr says, Vox, what does Space Bunny do, and does she have a degree? You can't seriously expect me to answer that question. But what I can say is that everyone knows we homeschool. Chris Hansen says, Vox is pushing so many women off right now. You'd be surprised. In fact, I would be willing... Actually, here, go ahead. If you're a woman... in the comments, say yes if you generally agree with what I'm saying, and say no if you don't. Just for our information. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not trying to talk you into anything. I'm not even trying to convince you that what I'm saying is true. Think about it. One of my mantras is, number one, most people are idiots. Number two, I don't expect you to agree. I don't even expect you to understand. So feel free to express your opinion. I'm not going to argue with you. I do wish YouTube would have a polling thing here. That would be useful. And so, it's interesting. See, if you look at this, where's all the no's? This is what men don't understand. This is what many men don't understand, is that women often get it. Even women who have gone in that direction, in the career direction, they eventually come to understand that they hate it, that that's not what they want. So why would you be afraid of speaking this thing if you're a man? Because there are women who agree with you. Don't believe what the media tells you. Don't believe that the media tells you that, oh, women are going to hate it. Well, so what? If it's true, it's true. And as it happens, they don't hate it. Some of them will. Some of them do. Who cares? They're wrong. Cave Bear Chris says, feminism is diametrically opposed to both scripture, they are treasured, and cold secular biology. Well, that's why I say that feminism is one of the most evil, one of the most ridiculous, one of the most unviable philosophies that has ever been conceived. And I'm not talking, when you say that, people say, oh, well, that's just, seventh wave feminism is bad, but sixth wave feminism is okay. No, it's all bad. It's all poison fruit. It's all dis-civic. It's all dis-civilizational. It is even dysgenic for the entire human race. I've said it before, I'll say it again. To call a feminist a feminazi is an insult to the German National Socialist Workers' Party. Feminists are worse than Nazis. No question. Can you think of a more evil philosophy than feminism? Yes. I would say that Luciferianism is more evil. I would say that actual Satanism is more evil. I think that the religion of the Mexica, which is the actual tribe that ruled the Aztec Empire, was more evil. Xenophom says, isn't feminism satanic? Not directly. I mean, it is, but it's not the same as Satanism. Satoshi Bear says, I wouldn't be with the woman I'm with now that wouldn't agree with what Vox is saying. Good point. But again, I don't have a problem with women disagreeing with what I'm saying because I understand how heavily propagandized they have been. It's very difficult to break through your mental conditioning. Annabelle, come on. Are you sure you know about the history of wives automatically losing their children after divorce? Feminism changed that. Yeah, And the situation is worse now. It would be better if men raised the children or were stuck with the responsibility of raising the children, because you would definitely see fewer divorces. Over here in Europe, it's a bit more common for men to be given custody. And you know what the interesting thing is? Men with custody will usually give their wives more access to the children than the courts require. Why? Because they're busy trying to do their jobs and make money. Even in your counterexample, feminism made the situation worse. See, here's the problem, is that women tend to be solipsistic. What solipsistic means is that they tend to view everything from a lens that revolves solely around themselves. So no matter what the situation is, the only way that they can understand it is if they imagine that it's happening to them. And so, of course, this leads to astonishingly bad policies and political positions, because any one person's perspective is very seldom likely to be the optimal one for all of society. And so you're thinking about the situation going, well, what if I got married, and what if this happened? What if this? You're worrying about a bunch of hypotheticals that don't even apply. And then you're thinking that that makes it better, when we know for a fact, with 50 years of evidence now, we know for a fact that it's made it worse. And this is something that a lot of people tend to forget. We're not talking about theory anymore. We have decades of experience and evidence upon which to draw, and the arguments of the feminists have been proven to be conclusively wrong. Feminism is unequivocally bad. There's no question about it. Ganji Blob Flanka says Lilithian is more accurate. You could put it that way. Jezebelian, someone else said. So, anyhow, we got on a tangent here, but I think it's a good one, and I think it's a useful one. And it's true that feminism is cancer. In fact, we're going to be publishing a book called Feminism is Cancer very, very soon. And I think that it's going to be a very, very successful and very popular book. Can you do a Darkstream on boomers? Oh, I think we have to at some point in time. Does that mean that women gaining the vote is a bad thing too? Yes, no question. I've written about this before. In fact, I even did a debate with someone who was shocked to find that I was not only able to debate that, but to beat them in a debate on the subject. There's no justification whatsoever for female suffrage. Kosher Shiksa says, your support for Israel is strange. Have you heard Benjamin Friedman's 1961 speech that outed the Jews? I have no idea what you're talking about, nor do I think that all Jews are gay. So I don't know what you mean by them being outed. Nor am I particularly interested, but c'est la vie. We've only got a few minutes left, so let's stay on topic. Let's all put stock in what a gay media personality has to say. I don't think you understand how smart Milo is. Milo has a lot more substance to him than you think. Carver Bear says, is the debate online? Yes, it is. Just search my blog for it. Kudamundra Bear says, does Vox have kids? Yes, I do. Slam Studios says, Vox, I'm programming a sci-fi first-person shooter, single-player, story-based, hardcore military game. Any way I could set it in Quantum Mortis? Love to have you do it. Shoot me an email. Be happy to hear about what you're doing. Maybe even contribute a few ideas if you like. We do a lot of stuff with Quantum Mortis. We've actually got a major military sci-fi series planned in addition to the existing, in addition to the existing War Dogs Incorporated series. By the way, I should mention this. You're probably already aware of it, but if not, we have the Jordanetics extended audio sample now available on the channel. Falsehoods have consequences. That's what makes them false. Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson is believed by many to be the greatest thinker that humanity has ever known. He is father figure, philosopher king, and prophet to the millions of young men who are his most fervent fans and followers. He's the central figure of the intellectual dark web, an academic rock star, and a media phenomenon who has shattered all conceptions of what it means to be a modern celebrity in the age of the internet. He has thought thoughts that no man has ever thought before. He has dreamed dreams that no man has ever dared to dream before. And he is an intellectual charlatan with a massive global platform. Jordanetics, a journey into the mind of humanity's greatest thinker. So if you're interested, there's an hour and 45-minute audio sample. It's got the foreword by Milo. It's got my introduction and then chapters 1 and chapter 5, two of my favorite chapters, actually. And so if you want to know why Jordan Peterson considers me to be reprehensible and why you are collectively the reprehensibles, you will know where to go. And if you want to pick up the book, we have it at the Arkhaven Comic Store. Somebody reminds me that I missed their super chat last night, and that's right. So let's not miss it a second night in a row. Okay. Okay, tonight Chris says, Vox, do you know about the Doomer meme? I was one. I don't, no. Boingo Bear asks, do you ever get tired of always being correct? I'm not always correct, but because I am so quick to correct myself when I am shown to be wrong, people sometimes fail to notice that. Let's see, just going down here. A wise man once told me that it's the wife's burden to try to change everything about her husband and the husband's burden to ignore her when she's being silly. It's one of those rhetorical exaggerations that is based in the truth. Baloo Bear has a good point. The story of America can be summarized as a man failing the shit test for 100 years. That is correct. It's interesting that women's suffrage only passed because a mama's boy politician voted the way his mommy told him. So America kind of deserves what it got. Darkstream, Cave Bear Chris says, Darkstream broadcasts are an intellectual privilege. My gray stells are always stimulated. Always nice to see a Agatha Christie fan. Intercourse, you ignorant trolls, slam a gamma. Well, we banned them, so that's good. Wouldn't the Pentagon lie about a retreat? Oh, of course they'll lie about a retreat, but we'll know it. Everyone will know it. You know, when they refuse to sail into the South China Sea, we'll all know it. I love you and BB, but maybe I'm crazy. Okay, that was from last night, so now we're in the right area. Let's see. Muffhead says, I count the Mexicans as an invading army. There's I mean, the thing is, it doesn't matter whether it's an army or not. And armies, at least, tend to move on. Colonists don't. Matt says, thanks for interesting why support Israel as a nation. Any econ discussion of corp law? Oh, this is, yeah, we did that one last night. Let's see, is there a way to artificially make a new currency to avoid disaster? No. Hano Hano asks, do you think China will eventually try to invade the U.S. after it's fully taken over Africa in an attempt to form an empire? No. Will you do an audiobook of The Privileged Sex? Yes, definitely. Hi Vox, how do you feel about Justin Trudeau? I think he's a clown. I think he's a lightweight. I think he's pretty much what Canada deserves. You know, Canada is possibly in worse shape than the U.S. at this point. Will says, is it likely that you... Oh, we do this one. I have not read Barren Metal, A History of the Capitalism Between the Conflict Between Usury and Labor by E. Michael Jones, but I've heard some good things about it. Lewis Hopgood says, still watching. Your enigmatic thought is buoying enough for one's interest level so far. Gamma male out for now. Hey, just keep telling yourself the truth and you'll graduate to Delta. Margot says, looking jacked right now, brother, HH. Got to get in shape for the new season. It's coming on soon. And I think we got it all there. I hope. If I missed it again, feel free to email me. But I'm doing my bit. Hey, Vox, could you update your podcast page? Thanks. I don't do that. So whoever is doing the podcasts, if you could catch up, that would be cool. Silvertron said, what do you think about drinking big city water? When I'm in a big city, I drink it. I live in Europe, so we mostly drink... not tap water, but bottled water anyhow. That's kind of the custom over here. So, Vox, please recommend a movie that will change my life. I don't believe there is any such thing, but my favorite movies are probably Grosse Point Blank and Heathers. Let's see. Let's see. You deleted the Shiksa question. Why? Because it's from the same troll that's logged on here under 3 different names. Apparently, I still missed some. Well, anyhow, I'm sorry if I still missed your question. Just email me. Oh, the water super chat. Yes, it's helpful if you're telling me that I missed something. It's very helpful if you actually give me some clue as to what name it's under or what the topic is, because then it gives me something to search for. Let's see. Okay. I did answer the water question anyhow. I guess you're probably behind. What do you think about drinking big city water? I don't think about water very much. I assume there's probably all kinds of great stuff female hormones and stuff from the birth control pills, but what are you going to do? If you live there, you live there. So, Vox, you're going to watch the Oscars. Yeah, that was actually, Space Bunny was cracking wise tonight. And she said, so, going to be a late night for you tonight, honey. I said, why? She said, because you're going to stay up and watch the Oscars after you do a Darkstream about it, right? And I just looked confused. She's like, the joke is a lot funnier if you realize that the Academy Awards are tonight. She said, I realize you have no idea that they're on or anything, but c'est la vie. So, all right, well, that's it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for helping us get to 20,000. Check out the extended audio sample of Jordanetics if you get a chance. This is the Darkstream. I'm Bob.